sir. Please, take your seats. Well, members of Congress, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, this would not happen without you, without him, without what he's led. Today's not possible, and the reforms you're going to hear about today are not possible. Mr. Chairman, members of the Joint Chiefs, secretaries of our military departments, Undersecretary Duffy as well. Without what has happened at A&S, this is not possible either. Acquisition professionals, corporate leaders, distinguished officials from the Department of War, defense industry officials, good afternoon and welcome. A lot of you came a long way for this, and we are grateful that you took the time to be here with us right now. We think this topic is that important for the future of our nation. Today, I'd like to talk to you about an adversary that poses a threat, a very serious threat, to the United States of America. This adversary is one of the world's last bastions of central planning. It governs by dictating in 5-year plans. From a single capital, it attempts to impose its demands across time zones, continents, oceans, and beyond. With brutal consistency, it stifles free thought and crushes new ideas. It disrupts the defense of the United States and places the lives of our men and women in uniform at risk. Perhaps this sounds like the former Soviet Union, but that enemy is long gone. The foe I'm talking about is more subtle and implacable. You may think I'm describing one of the last decrepit dictators of the world, but their day too is almost certainly past. And they cannot match the size and strength of this adversary, nor am I talking about the Chinese Communist Party. The adversary I'm talking about is much closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy. Not the people, but the process. Not the civilians, but the system. Not the men and women in uniform, but the uniformity of thought and action that is too often imposed on them. In the Pentagon, despite this era of scarce resources taxed by mounting threats, money disappears into duplicative duties and bloated bureaucracy, not because of greed, but because of gridlock. Innovation is stifled, not by ill intent, but by institutional inertia. Just as we must transform America's military capability to meet changing threats, we must transform the way department works and what it works on. We must build a department where each of the dedicated people here, especially the true entrepreneurs and innovators from our industrial base, can apply their immense talents to defend America, where they have the resources, access, information, and freedom to perform. Our challenge is to transform not just the way we deter and defend, but the way we conduct our daily business. The modernization of the Department of Defense is a matter of immense urgency. In fact, it's not an exaggeration to say that it's a matter of life and death, ultimately, of every American. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The speech so far is not my own. Those words are practically verbatim from a speech given by Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld on September 10th, 2001. A near carbon copy 24 years later. Now, the world changed the day after he gave that speech on 9/11, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan began. As a result, Secretary Rumsfeld never quite had the full opportunity to implement many of his reforms. To quote him, or paraphrase him again, we went to war with the army we had, not the army he or we wanted. Today, the need for Pentagon transformation, not just reform, is even more urgent than it was when Secretary Rumsfeld spoke those words nearly a quarter century ago. And his words are just as true now as they were then. The threat environment we face is advanced and multifaceted. Technology is evolving at an accelerated pace. The information landscape has become increasingly segmented and personal and exploited by our enemies. Many of our adversaries, as you know, don't wear uniforms and use civilians as human shields. Our enemies often activate under the threshold of armed conflict, the gray zone, and intend to destroy us from within. The world seems smaller and more familiar, yet at the same time, more complex. As I alluded to in my Quantico speech a few weeks ago, today we're undertaking a department-wide transformation of requirements, acquisition, and foreign military sales, addressing a core function of what we do at the War Department, identifying what our warfighters need, how we buy those capabilities, and then how we share those capabilities with our allies and partners, all in service of decisively winning any war that we must wage. For too long, our department has been hampered by a bureaucracy bogged down by burdensome and inefficient processes, paralyzed by impossible risk thresholds, and distracted by agendas that have nothing to do with warfighting. Naturally, such a system gives rise to a certain culture within the organization, and people adapt to that culture in order to thrive within it. The institution shapes the individuals as much as the individuals shape the institution. It becomes mutually reinforcing, and over time, the prevailing pattern becomes more and more entrenched, risk-averse, and immovable, to the point that the whole psychology of the department is stuck in a system in which process, not outcomes, matter the most. Previous administrations have tried and failed to address these issues, seeking to go around the process rather than confront it head on, leaving our military and our industrial base weaker as a result. The department's perverse process has in turn fostered a culture in today's defense industrial base that makes it unlike any other American market, uniquely tailored to the Pentagon in the worst way. Unstable demand signals, uncertain projections, and volatile customer base has caused the defense industry to adopt the same entrenched, risk-averse, and lethargic culture that we have in government. The result, an absence of urgency, a fear of innovation, and a fundamental lack of trust between the military customer and our more limited than it should be, defense industrial base. What's worse, the defense industry financially benefits from our backwards culture. Schedule overruns, huge order backlogs, and too predictable cost increases become the norm. Our military and our taxpayers need a defense industrial base that it can count on to scale with urgency in a crisis, not one that is content to wait for money before taking urgent action.